All right. Thank you for joining us for another edition of Short Track Radio. Again, one of us is coming to you remotely, and the other host, Cody Brown. Well, we should say who's remote. It's Cole. Cole's remote. Cody is safely distanced from Brian Clutchey in Brian Clutchey's garage. Cody?
Yes, definitely got my hand sanitizer here. We've SmartWash came and disinfected his little shop, and we're staying 6 feet away. It's quite the setup
Exactly.
with the stock car in the background and nice little work table here.
Yes,
welcome, Clutch.
Describing our settings.
Yeah, we're getting better in some things and worse in others.
Exactly. So I think, Brian, we got to start out. Where did your interest in racing? Where did it peak? When? How did you get into it?
Well, I didn't have the advantage of having a dad who raced or anything, but I had a dad who was a really good race car fan. So he used to take us when we were kids out to Western Speedway on Saturday nights, and we'd sit in the bleachers there with our bag of chips and our pop. And probably from about the age of 5 years old, we just sat and watched races on the weekends.
That was like so many people that we see out there. And I think Cody's pulling up a picture of how you guys interacted. And I think I saw a Facebook post where you described the color of the car that we're looking at as Tim Hortons coffee cream.
Well, it was actually supposed to be gray, but and actually the can when we opened it was gray, but once it sprayed and dried, it looked more like a double coffee. It kind of turned into a beige color more than the gray. So we were going to repaint it, but of course, the show must go on. So we hung the body on the car the way it was and put some flashy orange and rainbow decals on it and try to jazz her up a bit.
So Cody, this is was this when you were off in globetrotting around the world?
Yes, I was in beautiful Perth, Australia, working there, and decided to give Clutch his car for a couple of years. It didn't work out too well. He kept on fucking breaking it.
Yeah, we had some interesting times with that car. We had a lot of bad luck.
Yeah, the one I remember texting you or something. I was like, "Oh, how'd it go?" You're like, "Oh, well, spring came out of a car and went off a wall and went through my rad." And you're like, "I can't make it up. It's just the weirdest." This year, it's like what can go wrong goes wrong. I think Midgley got into somebody and jacked the car up, and then the spring came out.
The spring came out of someone else's car and took the radiator out. Yeah, it was one of those years where we should have wrote a book about it because it was such unbelievable stuff, but it happened, and it was good to get it out of our system then. But yeah, it was an interesting year, or a couple of years actually.
You guys mentioned this spring coming out and taking out the rad. What other fun, or not so fun, but interesting things happened throughout those few years?
Well, we had all sorts of interesting stuff, like racing up in Campbell River, and on about lap 5 of the race, the power steering belt decided that it didn't want to be on the car. And that was a 150 lap race that I steered that thing around Saratoga, which was a handful, and we finished the race. We were down a few laps at the end and basically head against the headrest, couldn't move my arms at the end of the night. And, just silly stuff like that was out of our control, but, you just got to do what you can do to get the race done.
There's one, the Canada 200, you started on the outside pole and got the lead on the first lap, and then I think it was about 11 laps or so. The car looked strong, you're leading, pulling away, and then flat tire.
Yeah, well, actually, no. That was 1 year. The next, that
was 2010.
Yeah, the following year, I believe, or maybe the year before, we also started on the outside front row. We got away from everybody. A caution came out, and we had maybe a half a straight stretch. And in my mind, I'm like, pace yourself, save the tires. But it's like nobody was coming, and I was slowing myself down and kind of messing myself up. Caution came out, which bunched us all up again. And then on the restart, somebody got a little impatient and jacked the back end up coming off in the middle of 3 and 4, got us a little sideways, and then basically as the leader got taken into the wall, and then a couple other cars bounced off us, tore the nose off the car, tore the rear end partway out of the car. It was just, it was unfortunate, but that was sort of my my wake up to the Canada 200.
Yeah, I was like, I came home and you're like, yeah, just take the car back. I can't do this anymore. And I'm like, okay, wicked, because it was right before the 200, so it must have been like the next year or something. The car sat or whatever happened.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, oh, sweet, yeah, I'll jump in the car. So it was a practice night, get in the car. Haven't been in the car for I don't know how many years, and mess around with the brake bias, and the proportioning bar in between the front rear master was bunged up on one side. So I keep turning it, going, it's nothing's changing. Then all of a sudden it lets loose, proceeds to give all front brake, back the thing into the wall. Pretty sure it broke my foot. Had to call the wife and be like, hey, don't get mad, but I currently can't walk and I've wrecked my car. So this car was, being that crap color gray, it didn't go well.
We should have probably just brought it out in primer. It was one of those things that, or I should have left it black. But we had to do a lot of body work on it because the guy that drove it the year before us seemed to run it into the wall a bit and a few other cars.
I blame my spotter.
Yeah.
Well, it's Lou Maline's original car, so I think that he was like, no, it's not going to be.
Yeah, it's not going to go fast anymore.
Not gray. When it went back to black, it was pretty quick.
Yeah.
And actually, when the Morses had it, when they painted it white, so I don't know, maybe.
I think
just the gray.
Yeah, I think it was the cream.
Yeah, nice.
It was rejecting it.
Yes, it was definitely.
This is your first late model here. We don't have the video going today, but just be audio. So we'll describe the photos and go from there. So this was Chester's number 8 car.
That's Chester's car we ran in 2004. He had Dale Robinson drive the car previous, but Dale couldn't make it out that year. So somehow through, I believe, Tim Christie and possibly the night of your dad's wedding, I got somehow put into the role of driving this car, which was an interesting deal because it was the first time I'd really been in a fully adjustable race car, going from the stock cars and the claimers and stuff. So it was definitely a eye-opening experience. It's it's on the my favorite list, but again, driving a car for somebody else, I never had the ability growing up to have a bunch of extra money, so I always had that fear of wadding up somebody else's stuff and trying to figure out, hey, I'm working full time, but I'm making minimum wage, and what do I do if I whack up this race car sort of thing. So it was kind of, we had good success with it. We ended up blowing the motor at the end of the year. I think we were 5th in points or something, and we had to miss the last race of the year. So it was a good learning experience, but then again, it was always nice to get back in the stock car the following year. And
you're quick in that car. I remember quite a few nights where you're top 3 speed wise. I mean, else it seemed consistent. Did have some brake issues with that one. Front brakes or something kept on going in it. It just seemed like you had ever
glowing rotors, and trying to drive a sportsman car without brakes is not a fun thing at all. And we had some some bad luck. We had power steering problems with that car too, and just lots of gremlins that with stuff that was we were maybe a little bit over our heads at that point. I would have loved to keep pursuing it, but it was a dollar thing. And, we basically had to step out of it at the end of the season and, bring out the old reliable stock car that we could run for, pennies.
And so was that locally at Western you were running that, or was that with the Cantana series?
No, this was a local Western Speedway Sportsman Series car. Yeah.
Yeah, you jumped the Katana. You did run with mine.
The Katana, when we ran the double car, that was the ASA Advanced Testing Series, which basically was the Katana series turned into the ASA series or whatever. Yeah.
So if you want to rewind, we'll go right back to the beginning. I think I have one photo here of a strapping young fellow with a trophy here.
Yeah.
It looks a lot like Dave Emerson's 78 there. So. This is your first claimer car, or was this one of?
This was the first claimer car. This we actually converted from our Enduro car that we ran in the famous Western Speedway Enduros of 86, 87, where they were getting over 100 cars showing up for one race. And this is one with some help from Rick Hogg up at Malahat Auto Repairs and Malahat Auto Parts. We put together this Ford, and we had some real good success with it. It was constantly a trophy dash car, and no one wanted to claim it because it was a Ford, and had a really good time with that little car.
So most people are running Chevys, and that's what they sort of knew, and they're like, screw it, we're not.
Everybody but Mark's shop was running Chevys, and they were scared of the Ford, and it was a fast car. It was a big car, but it was a fast car, and it's just because if you claim it, you gotta go buy wheels because different bolt pattern. None of your Chevy stuff fits for spares, and I was working at Malahat Auto Parts then, and we had lots of spare wheels and stuff like that up there, so we had really good success. We actually think we didn't get that car claimed for probably a season and a half.
Wow.
Yeah.
And being a quick car, that's
our first year in claimers, we finished second overall in points, and that was quite and I was green. That was my first real.
Yeah, it looks like you don't have to shave there. That looks like
that was probably 1987, I think. So that was getting back there.
So what, going back a little further, actually remember you got into BMX racing first, right? Like that was your first thing into racing.
Yeah, we started BMX racing when we were in, probably before our teens. And we did a lot of bike racing. We raced nationals, provincials, all that sort of stuff. But injuries started coming on. Plus the fact that I was, 6'2", and I'm riding a bike that physically looks like I should be, 8 years old riding this thing. And it just got to the part where it takes out of your body. So, it was not too hard to get my parents to convince me to get something with 4 wheels and a seat belt. And, they were all for it right from the start.
Who else was like Montgomery? Didn't they do it? There's a couple.
Montgomery's, Haslam's. We all started racing BMX.
Where was that at?
They had a track at by Spencer School there on Goldstream Avenue. They've got one at Juan de Fuca Rec Center. But we raced. We raced in Nanaimo. We raced Alberta. We raced down in the States, Sumner, Washington. I hooked up with the Montgomerys probably. Well, I went to school with Trevor. I'm a year older than him, but we were in split grades all through elementary school. So we kind of used to hang out.
Was he smarter or are you slower? It was. You get held back in school, or is he?
No, I'm a January kid, so I was like a year behind everybody else. But I'm still a year older than Trevor. But so I was always, and then we kind of found out through BMXing, and then going to the racetrack that hey, Trevor's dad races. So then it's like, hey, Trev, let's go to your place on the weekend, right? Start hanging out at the shop and the race cars and stuff like that. So it kind of all blended together. And then you find out that Robbie and Mike, who we used to race bikes with, it's like, hey, their dad's Roy. And it just kind of went from there.
Was that when Neil had the old the Payless Camaro?
Yeah, the 36 car, like the 82 Camaro or whatever. Yeah, those are the good days.
So this claimer car, you said you had it for a couple of years. You claimed it. So did somebody claim it, and you got another car? And
and then we started racing Chevys for the years after that because once someone else got the Ford off me, they changed a bunch of stuff because they thought, oh, we can't drive it like this, and then it just turned into a bit of a turd. And well, as you can see from the picture there too, it's a little bit rough.
It looks, the bottom rocker panel's not there.
It's a 73 Ford Torino, and I bought that from a car lot on the Colwood Strip there for $199, and the salesman drove it home with the plate on it and parked it in my driveway, and my mom says, you're not going to race that car, it's too nice.
Well, speaking of your parents there, so your mom seems like she was maybe on the fence getting started, but your dad's been with you from the get-go, building cars with you, and then building engines, stock cars, and getting going. So they've been really supportive throughout.
Yeah, my dad's been to every race I've been in, every single race actually, for 30-something years now. He's been there in the pits working on the car. He's in his mid-70s now. He's still over every couple of weeks working on, well, he hasn't been lately because of what's going on here, but over working on this thing and building this car over the last winter and stuff. Yeah, he's super involved.
Nice. Yeah, it seems like every story we hear when we talk to guys, it's the family. It's not just the dad. Usually the dad would maybe get you started in or whatever else, but it's the whole family. Like for me, it was my sister, my dad, my mom, and then Paula, like everyone's involved in racing, and you just can't do it, because it's all summer long. It's on weekends, long weekends, especially we get into the Katana race when you're the sort of the big show coming in town. It's the long weekend.
Yeah.
So you're not going anywhere with your girlfriend, or you're going racing. So if you're not fully involved,
you're booking your family vacations around racetracks, and it's been that way. And you know what? I don't think my dad would have it any other way. My mom comes to, the last couple of years she hasn't been out to as many, but the races out of town, she's driving in the car for 8 hours to these racetracks to go sit and watch me drive around in circles.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, that's one thing. It's been great. Sometimes it's frustrating. You get your arguments and stuff as you go along. It's just, you're working with people closely for 20 hours a week on a race car and a passion. So sometimes it gets heated, but I wouldn't change anything. I'd go back and do it again, right from go-karts and move on up. So speaking of that, moving up, we sort of go to, this is your Payless car. It's a Nova-ish?
It's a Nova, 77 Nova. And that's the Thunder car. So this must have been about 1994, I'm thinking. 93, 94.
You born yet, Cole?
90, let's see.
Oh,
Parents got engaged in 94. And I was, 99. 99 was when I was born.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I've had one drink, but I don't know if you should be drinking, or what are you doing over there?
Clutchey's championship years were, that's my heyday.
So that was 01, 06?
No, 01, 05.
Oh, okay.
06, I tied for points with Jeff Morris.
Yeah. But
he ended up, I think we had the same amount of wins. He had more second place finishes in the main event. So he got the championship trophy. I got the...
You don't look bitter at all about that.
Actually, I'm not. You know what? Jeff Morris has always been a good guy to race with, and we've always got along great. And
here's a stock car throwback. Actually, that 06 is 05, 06. Right around there is when I start kind of remembering more things from the racetrack, and that's because my elementary school teacher was Kurt Hogan's wife.
Ah.
So Kurt used to run the old Dodge, I think it was a Dart, or was it a Scamp?
It was a Scamp, I think.
It was a Scamp. Black with the green numbers. So we'd always go out and say hi to Mrs. Hogan in the stands.
That car was quick, but he never seemed to be able to keep brakes on it, so he
must have been heavy or something.
I don't know. Maybe just the way the Dodge is. Just
there was a lot of asking Mrs. Hogan what happened to Mr. Hogan on Mondays.
So that was this your first year in Thunder Cars? Or?
That I think is maybe the second or third. We used to paint the car different every year. I think when we originally brought it out, it was just plain white. So this might have been the third year. So this is probably 96.
How was that going? Who was sort of the leaders in that class at that time? Was that Tim Christie would have been?
Yeah, Christie, Lou Moline, Rob Nickel, Ed Brucker. There was a couple guys with Fords, Corey Lang and Mark Camiad, that were really quick those years. Trying to think of who else. A lot of those years all kind of blended into each other. It was because racing was just something you did all the time. So that's why I have to look at the pictures and see, okay, what was the color of the car, right? Because we kind of went from a white car to white and blue. Then we got Payless on board for that year, and then we went with the silver and the orange. And there was probably 25, 26 cars per night, probably 30 cars in the class, but 26 would show up on a regular night. So that's when racing at Western Speedway in these classic cars was at its heyday.
No, and those are similar to the stock car rules now. The same.
Very similar, and the only reason we got rid of that car is because the Novas were so much heavier, and the metric cars you could build a lot lighter. So those cars we had, we were carrying around an extra 200 pounds.
Those are leaf sprung in the rear, right?
Leaf sprung in the rear, yeah.
Just a little extra challenge for you.
Yeah, and we used to, on those ones, we ran a treaded retread tire, which was on a radial casing. So they were kind of a junky tire, but they were cheap. And from the grandstands, nobody could tell that the cars were doing, 20-second lap times because everybody was, very close in speed and stuff. But, it was nice and cheap then to run the cars too. But yeah, rules weren't much different than what these things are here now. So.
Okay. And how was that points and stuff? How'd you run? How did the transition from claimers and
they weren't much
Enduros?
Different from a claimer because we didn't come from a racing family, every time we'd move up a class, we had to relearn everything. Like even my dad, we're talking to everybody, we're getting advice, and there wasn't a lot of adjustment. There probably was more adjustments than what we knew. Like we never had a set of scales back then. It would basically be just go by feel. We didn't have a pyrometer. We'd put our hand on the tire and so oh yeah, it's hotter in the middle sort of thing. It was real old school then, even though it's not that long ago. But it definitely was a really good transition from claimers to moving up to a stock car like today, where there's a lot more adjustment and a lot more technology and shocks and springs and stuff.
Now the pictures change here, Brian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For those of you that can't
the best
see,
is Robbie in the background there.
Yeah, this was 2001, and this was in a trophy dash actually, and it just shows how hard we wanted to win back then. And this was, in a trophy dash, and we got together with we were running on the outside, and we got together with Robbie a little bit and turned us backwards going into turn 3. And unfortunately, but maybe fortunately, back then there was no wall around turn 3. It was a big berm, big grass berm. So this thing launched backwards over the berm, and it went up in the air like a whale breaching, and came down, landed on the rear spoiler and rear bumper. And you can kind of see in that picture, the quarter panel on the right side is sticking straight out like a wing.
Oh, and you can see the Pennzoil logo.
Pennzoil, Pennzoil.
That's the actual quarter panel and trunk lid there. So we actually got this car back on its wheels. I got out of the car. It was totally upside down. And I got out and then kind of took a quick look at it and thought, okay, my racing career is over. And walked over to the grandstands to let my mom know that I was okay. And then Rocky was announcing that night, and they got the car over on its wheels and they were towing it around. And Rocky says, that car doesn't look too bad. It's rolling pretty good. So I kind of glanced up from talking to my mom, and I had a little cut on my hand or something just from getting out of the car. And she was all concerned about that. And I said, I got to go, Mom. I'm going to go see if this car will fire up. So we got her back into the pits, and within maybe a minute and a half, there was about 40 people standing around the car, and they had the hood off of it, and they had a tow truck hooked up on the back, a tow truck on the front. They were tugging the thing to try to get the fuel cell back out behind the rear end. Someone put a rad in it. I don't even know where the rad came from. They were putting shocks on it, put a wheel on it. And then I think it was actually Roy Haslam came over, and the rear diff was bent. So they straightened it out with the tow truck, and he crawled underneath there in his good leather jacket and blue jeans and cowboy boots and welded the axle tube into the center pumpkin of the rear end. And they reached inside, and the thing fired right up, and we had her ready for the heat race.
That was the best. I remember thrashing on. I think I had the Sawzalls cutting shit off and everything. I was like, it's so much fun. It's not my car. I was cutting everything off. And then in the heat race, you started like right behind me, and the car was just all beat up. And then you passed me. And I just remember like going like, I don't think I should be racing anymore. If like Clutch flips over in a trophy dash, barely puts the car back together, and then he passes me in the heat race.
The car was bent in all the soft stuff that really didn't do anything. As far as the rear end was bent in it, and it was towed in. So it was a little bit spooky when you let off the gas. It kind of drove its own way. But I remember the tech guy, Russ Hancock, told me that night, he said, you got to start at the back. He says, and if you start getting in people's way, I'm going to have you black flag. And I said, that's fine, because we were running for the championship that year. And I think we were leading points that night too. And so I started at the back, and my dad says, just take it for a few laps and see what it's like, get your starting points. So I took it out there, and I'm like, it's a little spooky going into the corner, but if I kind of steer it the wrong way to start with, everything started going good. And then I'm like, you know what? I think I can pass some cars. And then I started passing cars, and I think we ended up finishing 4th or 5th or something in the heat race. It was pretty incredible. And then the same thing for the main. We got a chance to actually get it back in the pits after the heat race, and we did a few more tweaks to it, and we fixed the toe and stuff like that. It was making it a bit spooky, and I think we finished 3rd or 4th in the main event starting from the back. So it ended up being a a great night from what started out being like the end of my career.
Yeah, it's cool too. It's story after story of like when someone crashes or whatever. It doesn't matter who got into what. The car comes in and it's like 50, like I said, 40, 50 people come over and they're like, okay, what do you need? What's going on? You got, Robbie and guys like Roy coming over.
It wasn't even like people asking me. Like people were just there, and like there's a brand new radiator coming out of a box and going in the car, and I'm just like, hold on, guys, like I can't do this, right? Like I'm paying for this. I had a few sponsors, and like my whole career I've had a few sponsors, but most of it comes out of my pocket. It's my hobby. It's something that I want to do, right? I can't take people's money all the time for it. So I was kind of concerned about it. And, at the end of the race, I'm like, okay, whose rad is it? I'll get you a rad and stuff. And nobody spoke up. It was just like, it was donated, and it was like the greatest thing ever.
Yeah. And if someone else crashed and you had a spare shock, you do the same thing. And
Exactly.
That's the coolest part about the racetrack is that camaraderie of guys out there that will get pissed off if you get into them or jack them up or whatever else. But then again, like I said, you wreck something and then they're right there helping you.
Yeah.
So 2 weeks later, there's a picture here. It's back sort of looking square-ish and back on the track with some different colored quarter panels and fenders and whatnot. So how was the rest of the year with that car? You ever chasing sort of bent frames, or how did it go?
No, we took it into to John at Victoria Frame, and he pulled the thing out as close as he could. We had to replace a frame rail on the back from the spring back. And he gave the front end a little tug and got everything back into place, and we went on and won the championship that year.
So that would have been 2001?
That's 2001, yeah.
Nice. That's not a bad little story from going from flipping over in the trophy dash.
Exactly, and that was our first time really. We loved racing, but that year made us love racing so much more just because of everybody that was there for us and all the people that you from the racetrack, but you don't know them that well because you're competitors, and all of a sudden everybody's like best friends. And it was like, that was probably the turning point of going out there and enjoying racing on the weekend to actually getting some competitive spirit. And actually, we worked on the car lots, but that's when we really tried to step up our game and decided like, this is more, let's start putting some money into this thing and see where we'll go.
Then we have this car, which I have some other pictures I couldn't get put on the laptop here quick enough, but stock car, you had a good weekend. That's Williams Lake, I think you had there. So a couple.
No, is
that Prince George?
This is in Prince George, and the weekend before we were in Penticton for the Gordy Manis weekend.
So you won Gordy Manis 3 times.
Yeah, and we won Gordy Manis the weekend before this picture, and then this weekend we won the Bill Clue Memorial weekend in Prince George.
Yeah, so this is was it Tri-City Stock Car Invitational something or other?
Yeah, it was a Tri-City Racing Series, which runs out of Williams Lake, Prince George, and Quesnel. And 1 year it ran in Penticton as well, but it was just a 1 year deal.
So going from, pretty much just racing at Victoria Western for years and years, what was the transition like? What made you transition to the series, and what did you enjoy about it?
Well, the biggest thing was I'd raced at Western Speedway at that point for probably 30 years, and I didn't really know much else. I knew Saratoga Speedway because it was close, but we never really ventured anywhere, and you hear about all these other guys that are going these other tracks, and I knew that we didn't have the budget that those guys did, but I ended up being lucky enough to have some family in Williams Lake. So we thought 1 year we'll drag the car up there, and we've been up there before and seen the racetrack and watched the Katana cars run up there and stuff like that. So we thought we'd drag the car up to Williams Lake and try it. And they had a pile of cars up there. We didn't have to change anything on our car. It met their rules. And we just thought, well, we're going to give this a try just for fun, right? Well, then they revived their Tri-Cities tracks, those 3 tracks there. They revised a little series there. So they asked us to come up again, and they would give us some money to tow up there. So they increased their car count and just go up there and have some fun. And we found out that we were like pretty successful. Like we were competitive, and we didn't win at Williams Lake yet, but we were having a good time, and there's a lot of cars up there, and a lot of different varying.
It's just tons of different stuff. Like there's
like old 70 Chevelles, and there's like Ford LTDs and stuff like that run in their street stuff, or used to. They've changed now. They're all the same as these metric cars now, but there was such a varying amount of cars that the racing was really good, because there were some guys that were 2 seconds off the pace, but that would keep the fast guys from just taking off and lapping the field. So we went up there, and we've been running that series now for, I think, since 2013, I guess. Yeah, 2013, we started racing with those guys, and right up until last year. But I think this year we're going to just stay close to home. It costs so much to travel with the ferry, and it's impossible to get a sponsor when you're racing in Prince George, so you can't even help get people.
Caribou.
Yeah. You can't get help with your tire bills and stuff like that. So it's all it's all out of pocket, and it gets expensive.
Just mostly of the different tracks that you mentioned, or is it rules? What kind of made you look that way to begin with? You just mentioned it was like just knowing Western only and wanted to expand, but
well, I think was. I've been doing it here for 30 years, and I don't want to say it was getting stale, but I just wanted to see what else was out there. And we had the car already, and I wanted to sort of not run a 10-race schedule, run a 4-race schedule.
Downsize a little bit.
And their races up there are always like a Saturday, Sunday, or Friday night, Saturday night sort of thing. So you get basically 200 laps of racing in a weekend for one trip. So we just thought we'd try something different for a little bit. And, it's really good racing up there, and there's a bunch of good guys, but it kind of makes you, want to be back home again. It's like we took for granted what we had here. And then when we raced this thing again last year in the 200 weekend and saw that we were still competitive here after all the bad luck we'd had. And, I think, we're going to support the track here a lot more this year.
And so you mentioned the 200 weekend. What takes back to running that weekend? You hadn't run Western in a while. What was it like to come back and actually race?
It was pretty awesome. It was really awesome, especially once we took the car out to a couple practices and we were off, but we had also wrecked it the first race in Williams Lake, and we wrecked it bad for basically a new car. So we had to kind of thrash a little bit to get ready for Western, and it was off in practices. And we bolted a new set of tires on, and we're like, hey, you know what? We're kind of in the ballpark here. So we did a little bit more work, and it was so much fun racing there again. It's something that I honestly took for granted for quite a few years. Like, I ran the Cody's late model there, and I've been out running with Tony and Jen and the Bombers for the last couple of years, supporting the track, but getting back there and getting in the car and just, it's just like riding a bike, right? Like, your braking points, and, it's a thing that racers can understand, but you just get that rhythm going again where you can almost just close your eyes and just drive the track. Like, that came back, and that felt so good after having some success that weekend. It was almost like, even though we finished 4th overall in points and second the second night, it was like we won. And then, the whole team was just like, everybody was just so happy that we made it work.
You got spun out in the second night, and first night, and then came back, and like, you looked like a man on the mission again. Like, it looked like you'd be able to drive through traffic. The car was good. I think you used up the tires a little bit by the end of it, but you could see it was like, kind of had that little bit of an edge back, as much as Clutch has an edge.
Yeah. Actually, I was really shocked. I got spun out, and the caution didn't come out, and I was sure the caution was coming out. So I got the car fired up, and I got it back in gear, and I stalled it. And I got it fired up again, and then all of a sudden I look, and I'm like, these cars are coming at me fast, and I'm facing the wrong way in turn 4. And for some reason, the caution didn't come out. So I got the thing going again at the back, almost going down a lap. And I'm running, and I'm getting the hold your groove flag from Rodney, and I'm like, he's not catching me. So I started, pulling ahead, and I pulled a little bit, but he kept waving that flag. So I'm like, okay, I can't see everything, so maybe I'm holding somebody up. So I moved over and let him go by. And then for a while there, I thought I was going to get my lap back, because I was actually quicker than Kyle, and a couple times though I got into the bumper in the corners, and I'm like, okay, don't be that guy. So I backed off, and then luckily saved enough tires for night 2, and night 2 everything worked out well.
Yeah, it was good. Good to see you back in the front stretch there in second spot. Yeah, it's just right now telling the story. You look like a 10-year-old kid. How excited it is!
I know, and
it's
that's
like
the thing.
it is fun, right?
I'm pumped. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like when I came back from Australia, that getting that practice night, like wrecked a lot of the car, but it was like I remember being so happy. It was so much fun.
Yeah.
And we had to thrash on it, and you were probably, I can't remember who was working in the cars at each time and stuff like that, but I'm sure you were there, and James and Dale and everyone fixing the car up and stuff like that. So yeah, that was kind of nice to see there. The couple of the photos I mentioned before was I'm not sure where it was, but you sent me the photo. I was like, oh, how's Williams Lake? And you're like, we're just loading the car, and it was like this flatbed. And there's like the right front tire was taken completely off.
Was that this car?
It's the one that's pictured here. Is that the same?
That one? Yeah, no, that one's gone. Yeah.
So then you're like, then you took a picture of the right rear, and I was like, doesn't look that bad. You're like, zoom in, and I was like, oh, that is off by a foot, and like the rear end was completely out of it.
Oh, that was probably this car then.
Was it this one?
The rear end got tore out.
Yeah. So it's like it's on a slide. Your dad's like trying to line the car up and stuff like that. So.
Yeah.
There's this one here, which is
that's Prince George.
Prince George car.
Yes.
So that's a right.
Is that that was a throttle sticking on that one?
No, this one was blowing out the right front tire. The mini stock race main event right before ours, they allow aluminum wheels on their mini stocks up there, and a guy had hit the wall and broke the aluminum wheel, which I guess I didn't get picked up before our main event. And I was running second, trying to take the lead, running the outside groove of the track, and I happened to run right over that piece of aluminum wheel, which sliced the tire out instantly. And I hit the turn 3 wall there at about 80 miles an hour. I think that one's Williams Lake.
Oh, that's the other car.
Yeah.
We just have a video of Clutch not noticing there was a corner. Just driving straight off into the wall.
That wasn't driver error.
That was when you rode off the Lejeune car.
That's right. That's the car that I had rolled at Western, but we ran that car for 19 years, and that one. What happened at the one at Williams Lake when the throttle hung is they pit off the backstretch there in the gravel pits. So you come off the racetrack with your hot sticky tires, and you throw a little gravel up into the wheel wells. Well, I had got a flat tire on first or second lap, and we had to pit, change the tire. When I came into the pits, it threw a bunch of rocks up on the intake manifold, and the caution came out because someone else had wrecked when I got this flat tire. So we had to restart the back, and I'd moved my way up to about 6th or 7th, running the outside again, and a piece of rock, while I was wide open going down the back stretch, decided to roll from the intake manifold underneath the throttle linkage of the carburetor. So when I went to let off going in the corner, it held the throttle wide open. So I managed to get the car shut off, but you're sailing it in there on the outside, and it's a banked corner. You can carry a lot of speed into there, but that car did not want to turn. So we went in there wide open and destroyed it.
That one was a write off. That one because you bent behind.
It hit so hard it bent the roof.
Yeah, that's it.
Actually, that one bent the roof too.
Yeah, you had a couple good crashes there on this one. So this was Williams.
That one was
screwed up. This is Prince George.
That's Prince George.
That video was Williams Lake.
The video was Williams Lake. Yeah.
So Prince George. What was the?
That one was the tire blew out and.
All right, aluminum. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, and then this one was actually. It was a lot worse than what the car looks like, but the car was destroyed as well. But I ended up with concussion on that and was knocked out. And I thought that I only actually hit the wall. I totally remember hitting the wall, but I don't remember going to sleep and then the car coming back down the track and driving up the bank and hitting it the second time. And until I watched the GoPro, which you can see the little picture of on the roof there, and it took a long time because I knew that I was hurt. But it took a long time to watch that video to see, because the first aid crew there said, how long were you out for? And I'm like, I wasn't out. I totally remember hitting the wall. I remember you guys climbing in the car, but I don't remember how they got in the car or any of that stuff. I just remember kind of coming to, and the car was still running, and the electric fan was going for the trans cooler and stuff like that. So yeah, that was the one that the only time that I've ever been hurt in racing in, over 30 years was that one.
Yeah, I know. We talked after that, and it was a little concerning, the concussion. Like it just didn't seem to resolve itself right away.
No, it took almost a year before I was not, and I still get ringing in my ears the odd time, but
that's a Sue.
Yeah, yeah.
She's inside. She won't yell at us.
She can't hear me. Yeah, and that was, and then I read Dale Jr.'s book and telling about the stories of his concussion and stuff like that, and I'm just like, holy cow, this just totally makes sense, right? But luckily right now, touch wood, concussion-free, no symptoms, except for the little ringing like I've been standing too close to the speaker at the concert.
Nice. That was your sort of biggest and only hit. I think you had the rollover, but you didn't actually.
The rollover was soft.
Soft. I think you said the hardest fall was when you, or hardest hit was when you undid your belts and fell out of it.
That's right. When the safety guy says, "I'll catch you," and I'm like, "Hey, I'm over 200 pounds here. Are you gonna catch me?" Yeah. So yeah, that was the stinger.
So again, this is a different paint scheme. So which car is this?
This is the new one.
This is the one behind us.
Yeah.
With the big SmartWash logo on the side.
SmartWash logo, yeah.
Yeah.
We just put it on there today.
Well, it's got stuff in it.
Yeah, he's dented.
That was the first night of Western Speedway in the door.
Nice. So that was a car you finished second coming back.
Yeah, this is a car that we bought off of Phil Lagan. That was one of the original Thunder cars at the Speedway. It's a Lejeune built chassis. But it was severely outdated, and we basically kept the firewall and the front clip and the main cage, and everything else was branding.
Yeah, I was here when you were like, "Oh, how's it going?" And I was like, I was almost sorry I asked how it was going, because you were rebuilding a bunch of stuff. But knowing you for years, you've went through everything and redid it and tiddled it up. So you happy where the car sits now, or are there any changes you're going to make if we do get underway this year, which
just
unfortunately doesn't
paint and body work.
The left quarter panel needs to be shined up.
It needs some fresh paint. It needs a new number on the door, and it needs some fresh tires and some laps. But yeah, no, I'm happy with this car. It's almost as good as the old Lejeune car, not quite yet, but I think with some more track time. We just haven't had. We took it out to Williams Lake when we first finished it. It didn't have any paint on it, and we tore it up bad. And we fixed it. We took it to Prince George and had terrible luck up there. We got beat up there too. Brought it down here, sort of rebodied it again, and we had good luck at Western. So I think we're going to stay where our good luck is.
Nice. So those are the late models. So talk a little bit, like you mentioned before, about like 40 people helping you out when you crash, and something where you would be running full time, and then you would help me out on my stock car pretty much every time I came in. We'd run some laps, and it was like, okay, what's going on? We had Dale Taylor working on the car as well, and Colin Cooper doing a lot of mechanical stuff. And it was you were sort of the auxiliary, crew member that would come over and help when things were going bad.
That was bad advice, yeah.
Yeah, so I can't recall exactly how and when you transitioned over to helping. Was it in the late models strictly that you were helping?
No, I did a little bit of help on your stock car too.
I think the orange.
Yeah.
Yeah, the last two.
Yeah.
The 5, because the
black
dude car,
yeah. Because I wasn't running locally here.
Okay, so it was 2013-ish.
Yeah, I wasn't running locally as much here, so I was running more out, and I wasn't running the local shows because it just was costing too much money to run out of town. And so I started giving you a hand, and then you went and quit on me. So
I left you all my shit.
Yeah. Then I tried wheeling your car for a couple years until I got my concussion, and that kind of put the end to that. My biggest regret on running your cars is I never gave it 100% of what I had, but I was still running this car. Like I never gave a late model or a sportsman 100% all of my attention. Like, this thing I work on every night just to get out of the house, right? The sportsman sat outside in the portable garage. Sometimes I came in here on the hoist, but I would give And that's the thing. I would give 60% to this and 60% to that, but never 100% to both, because I just didn't have the time, and I have a hard time asking people for help to come work on stuff that's for my satisfaction, right? Like,
I didn't have any problem. I'm like, come on over if you want to come.
Yeah.
Dad supplied some beer. It's like, we just kept tricking people to come over. Just come over, have a beer, hang out.
Yeah.
And then before you know it, you're working on the car. It's like you rope them in.
Yeah, but I couldn't afford the beer either.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, neither could I. That was a good one. I remember we were talking before about some different trips. I think you were almost going to drive my late model in Penticton one year.
Yeah.
Because someone showed me how to make a watermelon vodka drink, where you take the 2.6, you put it in the watermelon, and then it soaks up, and then you forget, because you're an idiot, that there's a 2.6 in a watermelon. So you eat the whole watermelon.
Yeah, and
because you're half drunk anyways.
100-degree temperature.
We went down the canal, came back, vodka's absorbed, awesome. It's like Thursday night or whatever night it was, and then I think that night didn't end well. I almost had to find a different place to sleep and a new girlfriend and a whole bunch of other stuff. It didn't go over well. You know, it's a bad night when James Campbell's going, dude, don't say that. Yeah. You know, that his advice. Like,
when he's telling you to slow down.
When he's telling you to slow down, or shit's not going well.
Yeah, we've had a few of those times.
Yeah, and then Vegas.
Yeah.
Again, it was like, okay, we just traveled from Victoria to Vegas. Mike Haslam and me and my mom drove the hauler down. We made it down in a day and a half or whatever it was. Yeah. And then you flew down.
We flew down. Yeah.
And then it was, we should go out for a drink. We're in Vegas.
No. First we fly in. You pick us up, and you're like, oh, we just got to go back because we were starving. It was like 7:00. No big deal. Oh, we're just going to run back by Trickle's place too. We're just doing a few more little things on the car, and then we'll all go out for dinner. Okay, yeah. So then it's like 10:30, and we hadn't had dinner yet. We're starving. Okay. Well, let's go down to the strip, and we'll get something to eat. So the first place we go to is I wanted to go to Toby Keith's bar there, and so we go there, and I'm like, okay, I'll buy the first round. So I buy the first round of, I don't know what we were having then. I think about just Budweisers or something like that, and they're $4.25 each, and I'm thinking, yeah, okay, I'm getting off pretty cheap here, and we still hadn't had dinner.
Yeah.
So then I think your mom decided we were going to go to the next place, and she was going to buy the rounds there. So we go there, and I think she got off pretty easy as well, just a couple of beers each there. Then we decided it was Cody's turn to buy, and we went over to Senior Frogs.
Allegedly. I don't quite remember.
Yeah, and then it was Cody's round, and I think at Senior Frogs, the beers were like about $14.95 each. And at that point, Cody was super happy to be in Vegas and be a race car driver in Vegas. So the rounds just coming. And then we sort of remembered, like, hey, we got to be back up at 7:00 in the morning to go sit in tech for 5 hours at the bull ring. So we better start getting out of this place. Well, we found out when we got out onto the strip and tried to catch a cab back to Fremont Street that Vegas does close.
Yeah, it shut right down.
There was not a cab to be found. There was people, but no cabs to be found. Yeah. So we had to walk for about 5 miles. Luckily, we walked off quite a bit of what we had consumed. So the next morning wasn't so bad, but we get to the track in the morning and it's over 100 degrees and we're like sweating alcohol out of us.
Guys are showing up with 53-foot stackers with like 75 cars brought out, and they had actually crew members that were like getting paid. We're like showing up in
a run the late model.
Yeah, you're running late model down there, and I'm sitting on the chair being like, my head
and
hurts.
We still hadn't had dinner.
Yeah.
No dinner, liquid dinner.
Was Coxey there at that point?
Coxey was at he would not go out with us.
Right. He knew better.
Yeah.
Because he would, so Rick Cox, who helped out 40 hours a week with the late model for the last few years. He ran, came down to Vegas with us as well.
And for the record, he is not a stock car guy.
He's not, yeah. He'll attest he's not a stock car guy. He's a sprint car, super modified setup guy. So his motto was, okay, well, in a sprint car, you do this. So I'm going to do the opposite in the stock car, the late model. And
it worked fine.
It worked pretty good. It's the quickest we've ever been. We ran 8th in Vegas out of, like, there's 25 or 26 cars are down there. So it was pretty fun that time. I remember sitting on Clutchey before. I remember was sitting, there's a little bit of like a sort of a bank up, and then you go onto the track at Vegas. And I was sitting there, I got blacked out visor, and I'm just holding my shit together barely. I'm so hungover. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, okay, I don't feel good at all.
And I'm thinking I'm going to get to drive his car.
He's drinking water, he's hydrating, he's got his drive uniform out.
Massage.
Massage, yes. Someone's tying his shoes up. And I puke in my helmet. And just as I do that, I get a tap on the top of the car, which scares the shit out of me. And it's the tech guy or the pit boss guy, whatever, going, okay, good to go on the track. And I remember just like someone said something on the radio, and I don't remember what happened or anything. I just try to get first, get second, go on the track, and I'm like, okay, because down there you have to be within a certain time. You have to, if you're off the, slow, they're not gonna let you run, kind of thing. So I'm run some laps, and I'm like, okay, this is about good. Let's come back in. So needless to say, the next couple nights we didn't drink.
And the excuses on why he was missing his marks were incredible.
Yeah.
What's wow. Actually, you're in good company there. Greg Moore did that one time.
Oh, I don't want to follow.
Minus the alcohol, though. Minus the alcohol, he had the flu. In his helmet at Cleveland.
I had the Vegas flu.
There we go. It was the heat stroke.
Yeah, and that was a problem too. I was like, to be honest, it's 100 degrees or whatever down there. I'm a ginger. It wasn't a good mix of being drunk and in the heat and everything else, but we still had fun. So that was probably the biggest adventure trip that we went on. But no, there's a lot of times where you helped on the car, the stock car, the late models, everything else, and that was pretty fun times. I can't thank you enough for how many times you helped out. But there's so many stories of just different tracks, stuff going to, and stuff with James and Lumpy and Wiener Wayne, who unfortunately just passed away yesterday. Or the day before, and so it was a good crew. It was one of those things that how excited you kind of got in your face when you were talking about running this car again. It was unfortunate news with Wayne obviously passing away, but he kind of brought back all of his memories and stuff like that. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So we're at 52 minutes. Maybe we can. Anything else on your notes there, Cole? You had? Let's check.
I think we've covered pretty much everything there. We've ticked it off.
We got the drinking stories. We got some other stuff. We got the crashes. We're doing pretty good.
Did we do our rapid fire?
Didn't do the rapid fire. I can do the rapid. I got the.
There we go.
Thing here. So we will.
We might have covered some of it.
We might have covered some of it, but we have to follow protocol, Brian. I'm gonna pull it up here.
I have to tick all the boxes here. This is
an
efficient. It's like if you leave something loose in the race car, it's not going to end well.
That's right. Or you set a precedent for the next time you go out.
Yeah, we're trying to run professional podcast here, Brian.
It's a new track record.
Yeah. Oh, of course, this one doesn't have it on it. Stand by. Ask a good question, Cole. You got
yes. I think I actually, Cody. I remember one of them. Where did your number come from?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Well, when I started out racing, I started out with 78, and that's because the guy that was helping me with the claimer was Rick Hogg, who used to run a Ford and he used to run 78. And he actually stenciled the number on the car. So I didn't really have a lot of choice over that. Then when I moved up to the Thundercar class, Rob Nickel was already running the 78. So I was trying to come up with, some sort of number that we can come up with. So we basically took our stencil from our 78 and we just converted the first number to a 9. And as silly as that sounds, that's where we came with 98.
So the easy to paint wins out.
Exactly. Stick numbers.
Perfect. Cody, how's the searching going?
It's coming up here. I remember another one as my Word document's loading. A car and you did touch on late models a little bit about a car you maybe wanted to give it 100% to, but is there a car or a track or a race or something that you want to do in the future if you had $1 million?
If I had $1 million, no, you know what? I would keep doing what I'm doing because this is something that I can afford. I have a huge passion.
No, you got $1 million.
Do what you want. I have a huge passion for this stock car class and the rule package that it has. I've kind of in the past have been a little resistant to some of the changes, but it's actually a really good package. It's affordable that a normal guy working 9 to 5 can do with his own money. Like, I have the toughest time asking people for money to help me out. So, 90% of the stuff is done with my family savings, and our vacations are booked around racing. I do have a couple really good guys that have helped out with tires and the odd donation for fuel and stuff here and there. But no, my dream is to keep running this stock car until I'm older than Jim Steen.
Nice.
Perfect.
Best spotter comments. You've had a little bit of practice in the late model with some radios. Best thing you've had over the radio, or when you come into the pits after the stock car and someone said something to you?
Well, we actually used to have spotters in the stock cars 2 years ago when we raced in Penticton, but that luckily has stopped because that was causing a mess. You know what? Most of the spotter stuff has been pretty calm. When I was racing your late model last, my brother was spotting for me, and he's pretty good, maybe a little bit slow on the button. So there was one incident where there was a wreck in turn 1. A couple cars got turned around. I think it was Brandon and Jeff Morris climbed on each other. And my brother says, stacking up in turn 1. And I got back on the mic and I said, yeah, that's me facing backwards. Just made it through. Thanks, bud. And then, there's been other stuff where I've been spotting, and then we had your dad helping us in your car, and all of a sudden he'd come over the mic, blasting over top of me, trying to tell you that there's a spin, but you were nowhere near it. You were in turn 3 and 4, and the spin was in turn 1, but he had to jump on the mic there. But yeah, it's been some good times with the microphones and spotting and stuff. But yeah, nothing really good like the other guys have talked about.
Yeah, I know. I was hoping for something.
Yeah.
Awesome. It's frozen. My document's frozen, so
you know what? 3 is fine.
That concludes the rapid fire questions.
Right.
Perfect.
So
we'll do our
to say thank you for helping out over the years, and hope you get the car out this year if COVID goes away. SmartWash, because I know you won't ask, SmartWash will buy you a set of tires.
I'll ask.
Maybe I'll buy you a set this year, and if you don't run,
yeah,
then
maybe you'll get your name on there for 2 years.
2 years in a row.
perfect.
Awesome. Well, that was worthwhile.
Okay. There we go. So we'll do our SmartWash placement, and we're good to go then.
Yeah, this is usually where I try, fail, and then Cole just does it properly.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Okay, let's do it again.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, me.
Yeah.
SmartWash Victoria. Your Victoria fleet. No, fuck it. Just do it, Cole.
All right, SmartWash Victoria. Wash all the COVID off of your vehicles today with SmartWash. SmartWash still operational with safe social distancing practices during these trying times.
Exactly. And we do commercial office buildings and stuff like that and disinfect your office space. So if you have a space that you're working on, 1 or 2 people, yeah, Brian's getting some hand sanitizer here and spraying it at me.
On my computer.
On your computer, so hopefully that glitches it. But yeah, contact myself at info@smartwashvictoria.com.
Perfect. All right. This has been another edition of Short Track Radio. Tune in next time we feel like posting.